One of the greatest advantages of using frameworks like Angular is the ability to be able to control your template using simple code on your TS file. What I mean by this is that since we have already explored how we can add different elements like your H1, your custom components and stuff like that, we have the ability to also control what is shown on this template by the code that you write directly on your TS file without having to write additional code, extra code, but rather just, quickly binding things up and then, run over based of some logic that you have in your TS file. How do we achieve that? We achieve that by something they called an ngIf or ngFor. ngIf would be like your condition, as simple as your if statement that will say, okay, only print out mugs only if there's this certain condition that is met, or don't print it out. ngFor gives you the ability to be able to iterate through your different elements within your template using some sort of an array or a list from your TS file. And those are called structural directive. And there's another attributes directive which can be applied somewhere in your template. Things like your ngClass and ngStyle. This allows you to have dynamic styles based on some value or some condition that you have in your home component, which means you could have a condition that says if it's mugs only, make the background to be yellow, or if it's mugs and shirts, then make your background to be blue. But enough of the talking. Let's just jump into the first example. Let's start with the first directive, which is the ngIf, right? So let's say, for example, we have a variable, say show category, right? And it's something like this, right? So if we want to make this section optional, then we could have something like star ng, and then you write if like that, and then you just put in the double bracket, the double quotes like that, and then put in the value right there. So you will see that the moment I refresh, it's going to take away that section because we said it should not show. But you can see here it says it cannot bind since it isn't a known property. The best way to solve this is just by going to your component and then import common modules. This will automatically import any of those directives and any other things that are quite common in Angular. So you won't have to get that. So what I've added that, those things just went away. So if you go to show category and then change it to be true, then you will see that your section will show. But let me show you something that is quite new. I think it's came in with like version 16 or version 18 of Angular, where you can just do your ngIf like this. So it's like you're writing normal code within your template, and then you put your elements or selectors within the body. So that will allow us to remove the asterisk or star ngIf and then just have this syntax. So what's happening here, it's literally self-explanatory, right? You're saying at if, then you have some sort of brackets that puts in your condition. This could be a function you're calling, it could be a variable you're calling, and then you have these curly brackets around your selectors. And then this piece of code in here will only be executed if this condition passes. So just let me know if you like this over the star ngIf. And yeah, for me, it's still kind of new. And but yeah, you can let me know what you think and which way you prefer. Let's say we have this category name parent as a list, right? Which means that we would like to print this app category maybe X number of times. So it means that we would have this maybe as a string an array of string, and then let's say the section is shirts, the third section is books, and the last one, let's say, is content, right? So let's just say mugs, and we change it like that. How would we approach it? Using a similar approach to your ngIf, you would go to do things like add for, and then obviously just kind of do those for me. I would go and do, this is going to be a list of category name parent, I think list, and then we'll do something like this. So to explain this syntax, it's you have this add for, which just tells you that we're going to loop through the content that is going to be inside these curly brackets, and then you have an array that you would like to go through, and then this will pick an item from this array as it's iterating through it, and then this track, it's like probably try track this. I don't really read too much, but yeah, you can go and check more about it. So for you to be able to just show these items, you can just then pass in item here. You will see something that will literally change just now. When I save, it then kind of prints these things about 4 times. So if I remove this ngIf at the top here and only leave the for loop, then you will see that it will print mugs, shirts, books, and content. And yeah, forget about what's written in the inputs, but just focus on this for loop iterating through things for us. Another approach, of course, which is the before version, I think 18, would be to just use an ngFor like this. I think you have to do ngFor, then let item of that be that. It will still get the very same thing done. It's just that it looks like Angular wants us to use this approach. So I'll try to use that as much as I can. Otherwise, that is it for an ngFor. For me to show you how an ngClass and an ngStyle would work well, it's if I go to the category and then just, play around with a few things there. So let's just say, for example, we want to change this button to just show obviously the name of the category. And then we just change this to be something like toggle whatever category name is, right? You should see this changing, so it will be having toggle mugs, toggle books, and all those kind of things. And that is like that, right? And then let's change this method to say toggle category. I'll just ensure that as well the component TS file is doing the very same. 1 second. That should be good. If I click this, it right now still does emit this event. So I don't want to do that. So I just went for it. But what I would want to do is the moment you click this button toggle category, I would want the background of mugs to change anytime. And let's say, for example, as well as the color of the text. So the background, the color of the text, and as well as the font size. So what I tried to do behind the scene was just to add a simple CSS classes of what would need to be applied whenever I toggle these mugs. So in an active state, or whenever the toggle mugs is true or toggle shirts is true, I would want to apply this class, which means it's an active category, which will have a background of color green, color of the text purple, and obviously the text being a bit bolder, right? And then the disabled category will be having obviously a different background, which is just gray. How do we go about it? So you first go to your component HTML file. I'll just paste in something here. I'll explain through it, right? So what's going to happen here is you have these square brackets, and then you write in ngClass, and then you ensure that you do have quotes at both ends of your statement, and then you make sure that you have the curly brackets, and then there is like a key value pair that goes in here. So the key itself will be the name of the CSS class. In this case, it's active category, and then obviously you have these two dots, and then the value of that, it's some sort of a variable within your component TS file. So for example, let's say is active is some variable in here. Whenever we toggle this category, we'll probably do something like this dot toggle, and then it's not this dot is active. So that's basically just how you can change the state between true and false. So every time it finds the value is active as true, whenever you click it, it's going to change it to false and then set it dead. And the next time it will, kind of just do that and then toggle between the true and false whenever you click, right? And then obviously the second pair within your curly brackets is just going to be another class that says, okay, on a disabled state, which is when is active is false, show this other CSS class. And that's literally it. It's quite simple, straightforward. You can chain as many classes as possible with different conditions to say, hey, allow the cursor to change and all those other wonderful stuff that you might want. But I just want to keep it that simple. So when you click toggle marks, you can see that the toggle marks became much bolder, the color became purple, and then the background kind of became green. And then you can go and toggle the content and then change the same. But if you click it again, it will go to be at a disabled state. And that's literally how ngClasses works. They're quite reactive, which is pretty good. And as well, they're connected to your HTML file, your CSS file, and as well as your TS file without having to put a lot of effort to it. But another question comes to say, what if I want to have fine-grained control of different properties of my CSS that is applied to a certain element? Then that's where you can try to use something that they call ngStyles. I'm just going to paste a piece of code here. It follows a very similar approach to your ngClasses. The only different, it is named ngStyles, and then you paste in name of a CSS property you would like to change. So which means this name should match things like this or that, right? And how we would go about it in our case is, let's say we have some two variables that are named here. So I'm gonna just ngStyles and then do that. Some two variables that are named like that, and you would see that they get applied directly. To toggle them, well, you can just change them whenever you need. So let's just say this dot background color, and then let's say we want to make this maybe green, then we can do it like that. So whenever we toggle any of this category, you should be able to see two of these guys being both green. So that's how it is. I normally don't really use that because in many cases you probably want to, update a group of CSS properties, which in this case is your background color and all those kind of things all together. And with having too much fine-grained control like this, I feel like it kind of hinders you should you want to then add certain properties later matching a certain condition. And yeah, this is way too, too specific than having to just say group all these styles and then put them under this condition. So yeah, but it's good now that you know it. The second reason why I prefer ngClasses over ngStyles is the fact that, if you go to your CSS file and you start typing something like font size, the IDE would already kind of, try to autocomplete this for you, which makes it very much easy. You know that if maybe, let's say, for example, you say font sizer by mistake, the IDE will also tell you unknown property and then kind of, gives you some suggestions on how you can fix it. However, if you're using an ngStyle, the IDE probably won't tell you, because if we just copy the very same name and then let's say something like that, semicolon. I'm going to assume this variable, this was not passed via a variable. Let's say it was large, and it's something like that. Okay, you see the, let's make it extra large so that it can be noticeable. Cool, you see that is applied, right? But then let's say, for example, we made a mistake like that. What's going to happen? I'm going to refresh. Yep, let's say I made a mistake, and what's going to happen? It won't even tell us if anything went wrong. It's just not going to print the styles we have made. So it becomes a bit more frustrating rather than you trying to just use an ngClass and then have, you know, your IDE helping you type the things that are actually correct. I know most of the things that we probably have covered so far might look so basic, and yeah, it's because I always focus on the basics, because you will see in the next, I think, 1 or 2 videos on how we're going to take these most basic things to make such a very nice, beautiful UI of the cater store that we are building. So Bambelela, hold on, and we'll get to there. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching this episode, and stay tuned for the next one.